When I was about 12 or so years old, I was a console kid. The only time I really dabbled in anything PC related was when I played Diablo 2 or Age of Empires 2. Until my friend came to the lunch table one day raving about something called RuneScape. It didn't take long for me to convince my mom to pay for a membership, and off I went exploring this interesting medieval world. Then my account got hacked, and thus my RuneScape career was cut short, snuffed out before it ever truly flourished. I've glanced at the game a few times since then, but I never really tried to dive back into it just due to life continuing to roll forward. Well, recently Jagex actually reached out to me for a sponsorship, asking if I'd be willing to give the game another chance. I said sure, but only if I could still criticize the game fairly. Surprisingly, they said it would be fine. So let's jump into this old school game and figure out if it's still worth playing today. Before I start, I'm gonna come out with this right now. I only remember so much. I remember a few of the skills, a couple of the locations, the whole PvP wilderness aspect. So this video is more of me approaching the game with fresh eyes, and not knowing anywhere near as much as I'm sure many of the experts of the game know. Secondly, there are a few different ways for me to play RuneScape, but as the title of the video suggests, I really only want to talk about and focus on a few of the old school variants of the game. This includes my experience playing the game normally, and trying out the new Trailblazer mode that came out at the end of October. And finally, I'm not going to deep dive the lore of this game and cover every little area and thing to do. Because let's face it, that would take forever. This is more or less just going to be a little adventure with me describing some of the stuff that I went through and giving my feedback on the various mechanics. We'll start off with just a normal, run-of-the-mill adventure first, and then move over to the Trailblazer mode afterwards.
What are you doing?
Alright, so after making it past the login screen box, which now protects my info from the hackers, my eyes get treated to this wonderful graphical brilliance that is Old School Runescape. After making my guy look like a homeless Dragon Ball Z character, I talk to a dude who asks me if I've played this game before. My mind says yes, but my heart says no. So we take the full tutorial, learning how to click shit and all that. What the devs didn't realize is the absolute folly in teaching me how to play this game, and the monster that they've unleashed by having someone like me learn the mechanics. By the time I'm ready to walk out the first gate, I'm already a master chef, woodcutter, fisherman, and firemaker, having painstakingly grinded until level 3 in each category. You're witnessing the birth of a legend here in this video. My rampage through Tutorial Island doesn't stop there though, as a so-called master chef foolishly teaches me how to bake bread, further enhancing my experience harvest. Alright, jokes aside, there's something nostalgic and alluring about the experience system and the questing system in general. The whole thing is pretty damn streamlined, despite looking overly complicated at first glance to a newcomer's eye. You wanna hear some embarrassing nerd shit that I did when I was in middle school playing this game? I wrote a big old stat sheet for myself with potential skills and XP I had in those skills on a piece of paper and added to it every here and there when I felt like I accomplished something. So yeah, seeing these skills laid out like this really brought back a buried memory. The quest system is actually pretty cool though, in that every single quest in the game is just listed out in your journal. You can click on them to see where they begin, what's required to begin them, and if they're in progress/completed. I like that a lot as it saves me some Googling to try to figure out where everything is. I'm gonna skip over discussing all of the individual skills until I've run through them all, but I will talk about combat, which has way more to it than I remember. First off, you can choose which kind of damage you want to do, be it stabbing, lunging, blocking, or slashing. Some enemies are more affected and some enemies are less affected by whichever type of attack that you use, and each individual one correlates to a skill like strength, attack, or defense. This also applies to ranged combat, in which you can cycle between accurate firing, long-ranged, and rapid fire, which each have their own caveats and advantages. When I resurface, perhaps the most surprising feature of all is presented in the form of this voting booth. Simply put, members of this game who have a level of 300 or higher, and a minimum of 25 hours of playtime, can vote on which content will be added to the game. Now if we combine my skill level here... Alright, almost there. Next up we got prayers. I always thought these things were just spells, but apparently they're, prayers. They function like spells at any rate. Click them, activate them, they use your pseudo-mana, you get it. But the more interesting aspect is how you level them up, by burying the bones of your enemies. But then you get actual spells. Well shit. So the prayers are buff based in nature and give you stuff like extra defense and attack and all that cool stuff. They stay on until you turn them off and then constantly drain your prayer points while they remain active. They also transform the endgame combat into a pretty complex experience, turning it into an almost rock-paper-scissors style of gameplay, in which a player has to cycle through buffs depending on which form of damage is coming at them. The spells, on the other hand, use runes, which is a really odd way of using magic, but it's definitely clunky. I mean, just leaving the tutorial island gives me like 6 runes which take up my inventory space for no reason. I don't think I like that. And I feel like runes would be better off being somewhere on your compass rather than in your physical inventory. At least you can get a rune pouch later on in the game, but we're talking quite a ways into the Slayer skill path, and until you obtain it, you're SOL on a decent chunk of your storage as a mage. Oh, and there's a decent amount of equipment which can also use certain rune types for free as well, so at least there's that. Either way, it's adventuring time, which leads me to choosing a path. You don't necessarily have to complete one of these, but they do net rewards if you do complete them, and give structure to the game if I want it. The 2 paths that I'm presented with are combat and gathering, and I really like mindless busy work in games like these, so I get to gathering first. So I start chopping trees, and oh my god, I move so slow. Yeah, the run energy system in this game is a nightmare. Basically, once you run out of energy, you have to walk until it regenerates. Additionally, the heavier your equipped gear is, the faster your run stamina degenerates. I did not figure this out until way later in the game, unfortunately. Now here's the kicker. Since I bought a membership, I can go train my agility so that it regenerates faster. To do so, I need to go to an obstacle course type thing and train it up. So I head over to the closest one that I can see on the map, and it requires me to be level 10 to use. Are you out of your mind? No, basically I have to go take a boat over to another island to use the closest level 1 course. And to do that, I need to pay the boat lad 1,600 shekels. Amazing. So I start catching shrimp. Takes a while, but boy do I catch the shit out of some shrimpers. They sell for a staggering 2 gold. Alright, so I could haul ass over to the only other level 1 agility course that's across the map, or I could go infiltrate a dungeon and make a fat stack of gold. I opt for the latter, and eventually I walk out with 10,000 gold and set sail to Brimstone. Yeah, this was a fucking mistake. What I didn't realize in my agility course endeavor was the fact that while this was indeed a level 1 arena, some of the obstacles have a level 20 or 40 agility requirement, making this whole endeavor pretty fruitless. Oh well, back to killing cows. Yeah, this game is insanely grindy. I can forgive it to some degree, but I think that's only because I knew about it going in. I mean, the age is still there when it comes to most things, which makes a lot of sense considering the title of the game. You have to really enjoy the grind to appreciate this game, and that's not going to be everyone's thing. You'll see people fishing for hours, making long lines of campfires, and fighting cows like me. It's just kind of what you do. You put on some music, have some YouTube video up in the background, and just grind things out until you're ready for something that requires more of your attention. It's probably one of the comfiest experiences that you can get in gaming, and this is coming from someone with the patience of a starving animal. So while I'm grinding out cows, let's actually talk about the skills. We've already mentioned the combat skills, which are pretty straightforward. Attack lets you hit with more accuracy and equip better weapons, whereas strength causes you to inflict more damage per hit, in addition to giving you access to some shortcuts across the world which require strength. Defense, on the other hand, doesn't reduce incoming damage, but does reduce the chance of you being hit by enemies while allowing you to wear better armor. A lot of the other combat skills are pretty self-explanatory, and increasing them allow you to have better access to equipment and upgraded abilities. Then you've got your gathering skills, which are also pretty straightforward. Grinding them out yields access to tougher gathering spots and faster gathering in general. Next you have your crafting skills. Rune crafting allows you to craft runes which feel magic. Regular crafting lets you create various items and ranged armors. Smithing lets you smelt your ores to create new armor and weapons. And cooking lets you cook new recipes. The outlier skill here is hit points, which at a glance take on the Final Fantasy II method of experience gain. In Final Fantasy II, you have to take damage from enemies in order to increase your HP. RuneScape, on the other hand, has you gaining HP experience every time that you deal damage. It's a tiny bit of experience every time, but it does add up. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it's an okay way of making the player feel like they've slowly earned their constitution through battle. The rest of your skills are the ones that require a paid membership to access, which I bought for this video. The aforementioned agility skill increases your energy recharge rate, as I said before, but it also allows access to shortcuts more so than strength does. But beyond this, there are a couple more crafting skills which allow you to create potions, arrows, bolts, and bows. There's also a couple of gathering skills in farming and hunting. And finally, there's 3 more skills which are probably the most interesting to me personally: Thieving, Construction, and Slayer. Thieving takes all of those roguish traits that you want in an RPG and puts them to work, allowing you to pickpocket NPCs, steal from various market stalls and chests, pick locks on doors, and disarm traps. It's unfortunately not as involved as I was hoping for, but it's an okay skill. Construction allows you to build your own player house, which can then be customized with various furniture, additional rooms, and servants. One of my favorite things in MMO-type games has always been setting aside my own space to customize and allow other players to visit, so this one really resonates with me. Plus, the skill is actually extraordinarily useful in the late game in that you can use your player house for stuff like item storage, buffing, and teleportation, which is actually really neat. And finally, the Slayer skill is the ultimate in player versus monster skills. Basically, there are some monsters which are outright immune to damage until a proper Slayer level is achieved. By training slowly through the various tasks assigned to the player, they can not only kill these normally immune monsters, but they can also receive various equipment specific to the skill and turn a huge profit by obtaining rare drops from said monsters. Oh yeah, and there's one last skill: fire making. This is the biggest waste of a skill I have ever seen in a game. You just make fires better, and with different logs. I guess you can do some specific mini-games better, and it's required for a handful of quests, but why not just get rid of it? Or if you have to keep it, why not, I don't know, allow the player to make portable ovens for smelting ore or making pottery on the go with a high fire making level? Or why not allow the player to create different colored fires as they progress? I mean, sure, it's only a cosmetic thing, but it would be pretty cool to be able to apply it to your player house's fireplaces or sconces. Alright, finally I've reached combat level 10 in my main 3 melee skills, and I'm ready to move on from cows. I have to admit, all of this has definitely more than whelmed me, and looking through a few guides to help me out with the process of adjusting is going to be the way to go for now, especially with what happened after the whole agility incident. That said, one of these guides recommended that I do a quest that required an exact amount of ore, clay, and the like. And bringing them in that exact amount yields a special dialogue in which my character proclaims that he just so happens to have the exact items in the exact amounts in his bag, which can only hold 28 items at any given time. Well played, Jagex. The quest writing in this game actually isn't always the "You warrior, our kingdom is in danger, as goblins have infiltrated the Forsaken Mines. You must help us or our kingdom will burn." It actually tends to be more on the funny and quirky side, which I've enjoyed quite a bit. The writing really isn't that bad at all, though most quests take a lot longer than I hoped for, just due to the sheer amount of walking back and forth. Many of them tend to have you go from one area that you're in to another, back to the first part, back to another, just to artificially extend these quests. Mind you, all of the ones that I've done so far are free-to-play quests, and I feel like this intentional kind of spacing is there to pad the game with more content for free players. Before we move along, let's mention an alternative to whipping out your wallet and paying that $11 a month for membership. So there's these things called bonds, right? They're a lot like WoW tokens in World of Warcraft. You can buy them for $7 or so and they give a few weeks of membership to your account if you use them. Or you can sell them via the Grand Exchange, which is basically the auction house of this game. Feels a little weird using the newer game to explain the older one, but whatever. The point is that if you can sell these bonds on the Grand Exchange, then you can also buy them with the in-game gold that you've earned. There are a few great ways to make gold as a free-to-play player. And once you grind that out, you can make even more gold as a member. I love this option because not everyone enjoys the idea of a subscription with so many free-to-play or single-purchase MMOs in today's age. So now that I've done a lot of the free-to-play stuff and gotten a feel for the way that you progress and how long things take, let's move over to some of the membership stuff. Come on, don't attack me, don't attack me, don't attack me, fuck. Left, no, right, the fuck, god damn it!
Hey!
Come on, go over there. Go over there. No, not there, not there. No, 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 no. Come on. Come on. Fuck, come on. Yeah, member quests are built different. The XP gain is insane, and I'm immensely enjoying my time more because of it. It's almost as if that's how these guys make money. No, but seriously, increasing your skills in this game feels really rewarding with how much effort goes into a lot of them. It feels amazing to get to a level where you can craft new items, equip new gear, and generally do more than you could before. Sure, at the end of the day, you could look at it as a new coat of paint on an old car, and the reality is that a lot of what you were doing before is what you're going to be doing now, just with a new set of armor or a new set of items to craft. But that's really what the beauty of this game is, at least to me. You could start out with a single goal along the lines of, I want to do Slayer stuff, and look up a guide and find out that the most efficient time to start Slayer stuff is around combat level 70. So you're questing and grinding, and at some point you go, I want to get my agility up so I can move around easier. So you look up a guide and it tells you that a certain quest is a great way to get a head start. And that quest requires 10 fletching and 20 smithing. And the entire time your end goal was simply jumping into slaying at the most effective place. It's a lot of busy work with reward tiers that only let you do more advanced busy work a lot of the time. And that's not going to be everyone's thing, understandably. Hell, I didn't think it would be my thing for sure. And you don't have to grind like I am. You don't need to streamline the game to a point where you're level 99 in a skill in a matter of a week or less. You can quest and gain XP in ways that are more than just doing agility courses and fighting crabs, which is nice. Now that said, boy, let me tell you about the fucking waterfall quest in particular. Sure, I made this thing look short and sweet, but I honest to God spent about 2+ hours total on it. Getting to it, figuring out where to go, and just a whole mess of miscalculations. Let me briefly walk you through my journey here. Alright, so first I take this raft down to this thing, rope across, and don't click the safety barrel and take 8 HP of damage. I go inside the house, find a book, head to the tree gnome stronghold, find out that that is distinctly different from the tree gnome village, head over to that instead, go down into a dungeon, find a key, free a guy, find a different key, take that key to a catacomb area, loot 2 important objects while praying that I don't get smoked by giants, take the objects back up to the raft, find a key and get inside the dungeon, pray to God that I don't get one-shot by fire giants, make it to this chamber, figure out that I did not bring the required runes, go back out, head to a bank, figure out that I'm missing 2 earth runes, find the closest magic shop, get denied entry because of low magic level, go to the nearest port, which doesn't take me anywhere, go to the next port and forget that I need money to cross, go to the bank, then back to the port, head across the ocean, run to the next magic shop, buy the runes, forget that I need money to get back to the previous port, head to the closest bank, get denied entry due to a low crafting level, run back to the previous area and beyond it, go to that bank, run back to the port, pay to cross, run back up to the raft, head into the dungeon, get one-shot by a fire giant. No! Nah, I'm kidding, that don't happen. I make it to the end and put all the runes into the pillars and the necklace on the statue and the ashes in the chalice. Holy shit, man. Now again, so much of this was very much my own fault. Not planning ahead, not paying attention, not preparing myself better. But a good chunk of it is the map's NPC locations and access points which are locked behind skill sets. I mean, honest to God, some of the spread on these vendors is insane, especially for a beginner. It's very unforgiving if you're new, and I'm sure stuff like this has happened to more than just me. Now I do know that there's teleportation magic and better ways to access things that I haven't discovered yet, but you have to understand that if someone is coming into this game and isn't nearly as forgiving as I'm being, stuff like this is ultimately going to drive them away. I'm sure a lot of veterans are going to scoff at this kind of complaining, but I feel that it's valid. Now with the way that I've paced things so far in this video, I could probably walk through my various escapades to get to higher levels of agility or magic or defense or whatever. But much of it follows that grind that I've mentioned repeatedly at this point. I really don't have a lot more to say at this stage concerning the specificity of how the vanilla portion of Old School Runescape is played. It's just a bunch of footage of me admiring my XP gains while I catch up slowly on Critical Role in the background. Like I said, a lot of this game is very chill until you're ready to go take on a lot of the high-level content. It's a very interesting balance of zoning out and doing other stuff and intensely focusing and trying not to die while you chug your potions and make sure that you have your correct buffs up. Hell, I typed pretty much the entirety of this script while grinding some kind of skill. I think the final thing that I want to touch on a little more before I head on over to the Trailblazer stuff is the fact that I am confident that there were about 40 easier ways for me to do everything that I did in this video so far. There are so many resources in this game, and so many hidden shortcuts and knowledge about it which can help you make the best of your journey. Hell, I can't tell you how many tabs of the player-made wiki that I had open at nearly every moment when making this video, which was an incredible source of knowledge and help throughout my adventure. There are amulets and spells which teleport you across the land and places to grind gold to get them. There are potions which help you maintain your stamina easier and help you run longer. There are prayers that help you take more hits and dish out more damage. There are loads and loads of great content creators and guides which helpfully explain every little question that you could have about this game. And without that support, I'd have had a lot harder time enjoying the game as thoroughly as I have. Alright, let's check out Trailblazer. So to give a brief overview, this is the second league event in Old School Runescape, which spans the course of a little over 2 months or so, ending at the beginning of January. The players start in a specific part of the map and have to unlock other parts of it by completing specific tasks which the game assigns them. Here's the kicker though. While you do start with 2 areas of the map unlocked, you can only unlock 3 other areas. So you kinda have to know what you're doing to a degree to take full advantage of the resources of each area. Additionally, League participants will be locked to an Iron Man character, which is a mode type in the game where your character is completely and totally self-sufficient. That means no trading, no grand exchange to get items faster, no loot drops from killing other players, no looting other people's drops in general, no group activities, and so on. As someone who literally cheesed their way through quite a few XP gates with the grand exchange, this is definitely going to be an entirely different beast for me. As the player progresses through the league, they earn league points, which have various point floors that give rewards. These rewards include passive effects like additional experience gains and item dropping from specific sources 2 to 3 times more often. Additionally, each of these point tiers allows for the player to choose from several different relics which further affect your experience gains to help you play the way that you want to play. I'll get into the specifics when I jump into it. So what's the end game? Well, there are quite a few different cosmetics and ornaments that will be given out at the end of the season dependent on which tier you manage to claw your way up to, and what you decide to spend your league points on at the end of the season. This encompasses stuff like a trophy, some unique outfits and recolors for your various tools, a rug and globe statue for your player house, a unique teleport animation, and probably a few other things from what I can tell. Alright, enough of the intro, let's jump feet first into this thing and hope that I can figure out what the hell I'm doing. After I make a new character, the game does a pretty good job of covering all the info that I stated just before this. Additionally, the relics that I brushed over earlier are described in much greater detail. At the first tier, I can choose between one that makes it so that all of my fishing, mining, and woodcutting resources are doubled in addition to going directly into my bank instead of my pockets. The second one allows for all of my production skills to process their materials in one fell swoop. This covers fletching, smelting, cleaning herbs, and making potions without a second stackable ingredient, cooking, and crafting specific items. And the final one gives me a flat plus 12 to every single skill besides the combat ones. The plus 12 is nice and actually pretty damn good in the late game, seeing as it effectively makes it so that you only need to get to level 87 in a skill in order to cap it, though some things do require an unboosted level above 87 to do. But I'm not going to be maxing out for this video by any means, so I'm gonna skip on that one. Based off of my experience with production skills, I would rule out the second relic for me personally. I like the idea of the last and the first the most, but ultimately I decided to go with the first one, Endless Harvest. Additionally, my favorite effect in the entire game is given to you as a passive alongside these first relics: Infinite Running Stamina. My RuneScape experience has literally never been better until this moment. My first goal is to complete 58 tasks to unlock another area. Tasks are divided into 5 tiers of difficulty, which all have better point rewards for harder tasks and vice versa. The whole task section of your quest menu has filters for you to pick out what you want to do first, so naturally I look for the easy shit first. Okay, but seriously, in my first 30 or so minutes of playing this, my stats look like this, which is absolutely insane. I love this. I'm not even looking at my tasks yet, I'm just kinda doing my thing. chopping trees here and there, fighting cows obviously, cooking their meat, burying their bones, and then deciding to go fishing and mining for resources. I've decided that my first mini goal here is going to be fishing until I get bored, mining until I get bored, and then grabbing everything that I fished and mined and cooking and smelting it down. By the end, I have 35 fishing, 30 mining, and 20 smithing. I want weapons, I want armor. And when I get that, I want to keep on tasking until I can unlock the next relic and Asgarnia, since it's probably the area of the map that I'm personally most familiar with besides Kandarin, which I'll be unlocking after that. The whole mode can be basically summed up as RuneScape on crack, as that whole trail of objectives which I followed before is amplified by the League's massive XP increases and farming potential with my relic. My goals aren't looking to be completed in one day, they're looking to be completed in an hour or less a lot of the time. And it's awesome. I honestly prefer it to the standard mode at this point just because everything feels that much more rewarding. So after I get suited up in my chocolate bar armor, I decide that this mining and smithing thing ain't all that bad, but I'm gonna want a better pick. To get that, I need to unlock the next area and head over to the Dwarven Mine, but I can also pickpocket a steel pickaxe off of the Humans Against Monsters members if I get my thieving up to 15 to 20. So I work on that a bit and then head up to the ham base and start pickpocketing some more until I get my steel pick. Now it's back to tasking until I hit that 500 point mark. This actually takes a little bit longer than I thought it would to hit the next relic tier, as I find myself doing a lot of the same quests for extra task points, mining much further than I did in the vanilla game, and getting my combat to nearly the same stage which took me hours and hours before. The quests actually don't take very long at all compared to before, though I'd say that's probably because I know exactly what I'm doing and where I'm going now. And the whole endless stamina thing. When I finally do make it to the tier 2 relics, all of them revolve around making it around the world quicker. This was a really tough choice for me, as the first one allows you to access the Fairy Ring Network of Teleportation, which is a set of 44 circles that are spread across the land. Additionally, I can use the Spirit Tree Network, which is another 5 locations with 5 more potentially being unlocked via farming. Now that said, only a fraction of these places will be accessible during the League's limited scope, so it's probably out for me. The second relic gives me a boatload of jewelry, which all have infinite charges to transport me to various places. This one seems more up my alley, as it has a lot more locations I'm familiar with and might be able to access depending on which areas I unlock. But the final relic lets you do this. I'd let you guess which one I went with, but I think it might be obvious. Yeah, the last recall relic seemed like it wasn't going to be good, but when I started to think about it, I realized I could easily pop into a bank or a smith or wherever, and then just get back to whatever I was doing previously. This means that if I wanted to do all of that ridiculous rune crafting which took so long before, I could load up on runes, head back to the altar, make the runes, and then teleport back to the bank and repeat this with no issue. It's the only relic of these 3 which gives me something that I couldn't normally obtain, though I will say that the tier 2 still wouldn't be that bad for me personally. Oh, and also with this relic, my XP modifier goes up to 8 times the normal XP, allowing me to really start busting out some of these skills. The pattern of getting to the second relic repeats itself from here, albeit at a much more convenient rate. I know I want that mithril gear, so I mine away, smelt away, and smith away. The main difference in my playstyle here has been gimped primarily by the lack of the Grand Exchange, meaning that I wind up doing a lot more gathering and production type things to actually gain the things that I want. This actually has me breaking away to different locations and activities, which vary from mining gems and cutting them down to fishing up food and cooking it for use during Slayer quests. Slayer is something that I mentioned as having a big interest in for pretty much the entire game. That said, I never really got to it during the vanilla game just due to thinking that I needed to be a super high level to get into it. While a lot of the Slayer content is more endgame kind of stuff, there are quite a few tasks that you can complete at a lower level as well without too much struggling. During Trailblazer, that content is way more accessible for me, and I wind up powering through hill giants on a task and gaining just enough to get to the rune equipment requirement. The problem here is that I'm around, 23 or so smithing, and rune stuff takes 85. This is why I was going to be content with mithril gear. My main issue now is the need for iron to level up my smithing, which is partially why I came to this Slayer area in the first place. Unfortunately, the monsters near the iron protect it pretty fiercely at my level, so slaying was the solution with this particular hurdle, as I rocket past my previous combat level to a point where the monsters don't bug me. So finally I can jack my smithing up to something that doesn't make me sad to look at and get my holy blue armor. Magnificent. My sole focus again is tasks, at least until I can unlock the next area. I've got big plans. I want to see what that mining guild is all about. I mean, I'm sure it's just a place to buy mining stuff, but I want to see it, damn it. And that's probably my favorite part about this mode. I can see stuff that's more mid to late game a lot easier. It probably would have taken me a good 10 to 12 hours to get to 60 mining in the vanilla game, and I got it done in about 2 at most. And that's not even mentioning the amount of time that I would have had to spend hoofing it back and forth between the bank and the mining site to bank my ores. I would totally be on board for this mode to last year-round and reset every couple of months, because I could honestly see myself trying to sprint to 99 in every skill during a season. So after doing some miscellaneous tasks to unlock Asgarnia, I'm hit with the next requirement of a whopping 80 tasks. I guess it's a good thing I've got a new area to start hacking away at, but this is probably the last stretch of the road for this video. I could keep plugging away and eventually make it to those tier 6 relics, but with my current set of knowledge, it's probably going to take me another month just to continue to get a handle on and familiarize myself with the massive amount of content in this game. And I feel like that's the main point to make with RuneScape here. You need to be patient if you want true enjoyment. There's a steep learning curve which is only overcome by a heavy mix of trial and error, looking up guides, and generally doing things that you're interested in the most one step at a time. Leagues is a fantastic way to take all of that knowledge that you've built up in the vanilla game and utilize it to the most of your ability, while learning where the best resource spots, quests to do, and things to kill are. The enhanced XP makes you feel like you're taking great strides forward at nearly every moment, and it really helps you to better figure out what exactly will help you when you go back to the vanilla game. When I first popped onto RuneScape after so many years only to see just under 200,000 people active at any given time, I was more than surprised. But after exploring all of this stuff for myself, I have to say that I get it. Is it perfect? Good God, no. There are so many little aggravating things that got on my nerves, and so many little quality of life changes that I could see being made to make things even the slightest bit more convenient. There were times where I died and I just glared at my tombstone for a moment on the world map before sighing and doing my best to get to it in time. That's the beauty of this older game in this modern world. It doesn't always hold your hand. It knows what it is and it doesn't need to update to become more modern, because let's face it, if you wanted that experience, you could always play the newer version of the game. You're always learning, always improving every little facet of what you do and what you know. There's something uniquely challenging in plotting out the best way to survive when trying to reclaim your lost items at your grave. There's something fascinating about this game that continues to update and innovate its mechanics and add new content in a world where MMOs can look like this. So is Old School RuneScape worth playing today? Absolutely, but only if you understand what you're getting into. If you can't get over the graphics and the little MS-DOS-esque beeps and bloops that resemble sound effects, if you can't appreciate the grinding and earning those levels, if you don't want to pay for a subscription or don't feel like juggling bonds to try to keep your membership afloat, then maybe the game isn't for you. But if you can appreciate the idea of getting thrown into a world where you don't know exactly how everything works, where exploration oftentimes leads to new questions and endeavors, where you can start off with one goal in mind and have it suddenly become several goals, then Old School RuneScape may just be the game for you. Thanks for watching. I had actually quite a bit of fun with this one. It was probably one of the most learning-intensive videos that I've made, as every little thing felt as though I might have been getting it wrong in some way. But I did have fun. Anyways, I've got shirts. Actually, starting Black Friday when all of these sales and all that shit start, I'll have quite a few new holiday items. Merch. I think that's the term. Merch. Yep. I also got a Twitch where sometimes, just sometimes, I stream myself playing games. Imagine that. I've got a Twitter where I mush my long-ass fingers gently into my keyboard and hope that it says something legible by the time I'm finished. I have a Discord where other people mush their collectively average fingers into keys of their own, and usually an incoherent mess comes out on the other end. And I have a Patreon. And that's it. You can go now. I've got some grinding to do.